Hi, guys. So this week we are going to be focusing on point of view, and it's the start of our point of view and characterization unit of study that we are going to be tackling over the next few weeks. Now, some of this may be review. I know that we covered point of view and characterization earlier this school year, and it's likely that our new students have covered this as well in the physical schools. So if any of this is something you know already, then great. It's a review. You already know it. But if it isn't, then excellent. We're going to learn together. All right. So here we go, you guys. Here are our learning targets. Now we have two for today. These two are specifically for today. And then the third one is for the entire unit of study. So the first one is I can take notes on narrator and point of view. Pretty straightforward. We have focus notes for you to use. Make sure to have those open and be using them. I will show them here in just a second. I can determine the point of view of a text. So we're going to tackle doing that together within this short presentation, and then you guys will be doing it yourself going forward in an assignment. I can explain how an author develops the point of view of the narrator in a text. All right, so that's the big one. That's the big one we're going to be covering throughout the unit. I can explain how an author develops the point of view of the narrator in a text. So eventually what you're going to be able to do is read a text and then explain how the author has developed the point of view, how they have made the point of view obvious to you through the writing of their narrator within the text, within whether that's a short story or an excerpt from a novel. But we will tackle that as we go along. Right now, we're just setting up the groundwork knowledge for you guys to be able to use going forward. So let's tackle first person point of view. So first person point of view is where the narrator is a character in the story. All right, you guys. Now, just as a reminder, our note-taking, our notes right now, this is exactly where you want to pop over and start including this information in your notes. Very important because all of this information is needed in your notes. Same with the next slide. So the narrator is a character in the story when it is first person point of view. You can see our paper here. That narrator is right there in that story. The narrator uses the pronouns I, me, and my to refer to himself or herself. The narrator tells his or her own thoughts and feelings in his or her own voice. So it's in their own voice, it's from their viewpoint. And then the narrator does not know what other characters are thinking and feeling. And this is just like how it is in the world right now for you. You don't know what other people are thinking and feeling unless they tell you or say it aloud or act it out, because your perspective is first person. So here's an example. Remember, we need to pay attention to the pronouns I, me, and my. Here we go. I was flying along when I spotted sparks exploding on the street below. The evil shock blaster was attacking innocent people. Time for me to come to the rescue again. Angry and annoyed, I realized that talented superheroes like me never get the day off. All right, so there's me, I, me again, more I. So we can identify that this is first person point of view by identifying the pronouns that are used. Let's pick out those pronouns. Like I said, we've got our I's and our me's. We know that the narrator is a character in the story because they're saying that they have to go and rescue everyone once again. And then they're telling their own thoughts and feelings, right? So we have angry and annoyed. They're telling it from their perspective. I spotted the sparks. I realized. And they don't know what other characters are thinking and feeling because it's specifically from their point of view. They can only tell you what they're seeing, how they're feeling, and what they're thinking. That's first person point of view. Your viewpoint on the world is first person. Now let's talk about third person point of view. So when we're in third person point of view, the narrator is not a character in the story. They're outside of the story. They use the pronouns he, she, and they to refer to the characters. He, she, and they. Those are the pronouns we need to pay attention to. Make sure you get those in your notes as well. And then the narrator can reveal the thoughts, opinions, and feelings of one or more of the characters because they're able to be outside of the story. Remember, it's not just from their perspective, the I, me, my within the story. It is a third person point of view. They get to use those pronouns, he, she, and they. Let's take a look at our example here. As dynamite zoomed toward the explosion, a billion thoughts raced through his mind. He wondered why villains always started trouble on his day off. From a roof above the panicked crowd, Shock Blaster saw dynamite swooping across the sky toward him. Him again, Shock Blaster muttered. All right, so we can identify that this is third person point of view by the use of the pronouns he, she, and they. He, him, they, and we can see here the thoughts and opinions and feelings of one or more characters. So we have Dynamite wondering why villains always start trouble on his day off. And then we get to hear from Shock Blaster as Dynamite is swooping towards him. Him again, Shock Blaster muttered. So it's not necessarily from Dynamite's point of view because he wouldn't have been able to hear Shock Blaster mutter that as he's swooping towards him. And Shock Blaster, there's no way that he could know what Dynamite is thinking. And so we know it's third person point of view because of those separate thoughts that we get to hear. All right, so now we've covered first person point of view and third person point of view, and you should have put all of these into your focus notes. Make sure you also write out those sentences, one in first person and in third person. But now let's take a peek at a couple of examples of texts that we have read so far this year. So here's the first one. This is Bridge to Terabithia. So let's take a look and see if we can figure out if this is first person or third person point of view based upon the notes that we have taken. Badaroom, 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 butteribitty, 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 butteribitty. Good. His dad had the pickup going again. He could get up now, just slid out of bed and into his overalls. He didn't worry about a shirt because once he began running, he would be as hot as popping grease, even if the morning air was chill. Or shoes, because the bottoms of his feet were by now as tough as his worn out sneakers. All right, and he keeps going. You're welcome to read the rest if you want to, but let's take a look at this first paragraph. Let's look at those pronouns. His, he, his. So we're seeing a lot of he. So let's go back to our third person point of view notes. Uses the pronouns he. All right, I'm thinking that this is a pretty clear indication that we're looking at third person, and it can reveal the thoughts, opinions, and feelings of one or more characters. Now remember, it can be one character, and in this case, we are seeing from the perspective of Jess, but between the pronoun use of he and knowing what Jess is thinking, we can identify this as third person point of view. That pronoun use is the big indicator. Let's look at the next one. So this is Click Clack the Rattlebag. If you guys remember this from January, this is the short story by Neil Gaiman. And let's take a quick read before we start identifying whether this is first person or third person. Before you take me up to bed, will you tell me a story? Do you actually need me to take you up to bed? I asked the boy. He thought for a moment. Then, with intense seriousness, yes, actually, I think you do. It's because I finished my homework, and so it's my bedtime. And I am a bit scared. Not very scared, just a bit. But it is a very big house, and lots of times the lights don't work, and it is sort of dark. I reached over and tousled his hair. I can understand that, I said. It is a very big, old house. He nodded. We were in the kitchen, where it was light and warm. I put down my magazine on the kitchen table. What kind of story would you like me to tell you? All right, so let's start with our pronoun usage because that's our first indicator, right? And I'm seeing I and he, but I'm seeing a lot of I from our narrator here. Our narrator is talking about themselves. So let's pop back up to first person point of view. Uses the pronouns I, me, and my. All right, that seems like a pretty clear indication. The narrator is also a character in the story here. He's literally telling us a story about when he's talking to this boy. He says, I tousled his hair. He's talking to the boy. He's a character in the story. He's talking about his own thoughts or feelings, right? Because he's telling him that he thinks it's a very big old house, and he does not know what the other characters are thinking and feeling. He can't know what the other characters are thinking and feeling here because he actually asks the boy, do you actually need me to take you up to bed? He doesn't know what the boy is thinking. He has to ask him. So therefore, all of those work together to tell us that Click Clack the Rattlebag is written in first person point of view. So that brings us to the end of this lesson, you guys. Now it's going to be your turn to hand in your notes. Make sure to get all of those green highlighted areas filled out and hand in the notes, and then move on to the next section where we're going to be discussing point of view and doing close reading activities with it. We'll talk to you guys soon.